praise you, to honor your name, Heavenly Father, to thank you, and to study your word this evening. And we thank you, God, you've given us this opportunity to be here. And thank you for the blessings you give us, our lives, and this one more day for us to live and love, love life, and love our families. And we thank you, God, for the word that you provide for us, Heavenly Father, that guides us and corrects us, Heavenly Father, and saves us if we obey your word. And we thank you, God, for your Son, Jesus Christ, who willingly sacrificed his life and bled on that cross and rose again for our salvation, that we may have hope in eternity with you, God. We ask God to be with us this evening and open our hearts that we may forget everything going around us and that we may focus on what we're studying tonight. You are the speaker, that you may recall everything that you studied to present to us this evening. We ask God that we may be able to apply this in our lives and somehow use it to share to other people, that they may see the light in us, Heavenly Father. That we may be an example to the people that knows us. We ask God to continue blessing us and watch over us, and please be with the ones that aren't able to be here this evening, whether there's weather or health, traveling, or spiritual life. We ask God to guide them and protect them and heal them, Heavenly Father, and to bring them back here safely. Please help us in our shortcomings and with our weaknesses, Heavenly Father, that we may continue to be more like you and to glorify your name. Ask you this in Jesus' name.
Is it working? Sounds like it is. You can't hear it? Can you hear me now? Okay. All right. Looks like we're ready to start Ruth 2. I think I'll read a couple verses from Ruth 1 there to kind of get us where we were at. Okay, now, Naomi, this is her. If we're talking about her, I'm going to start here at verse 21. I went out full, and the Lord has brought me home empty. Why do you call me Naomi, since the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has afflicted me? So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab. Now they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the harvest, the barley harvest. Okay, chapter 2. Read a little bit that one. There was a relative of Naomi's husband, a man of great wealth of the family of Elimelech. His name was Boaz. So Ruth the Moabitess said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean heads of grain after him in whose sight I may find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." Then she left and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the family of Elimelech. Okay. Okay, question 1. What did Ruth request to do to provide for her and Naomi?
She wanted to go glean in the field among the grain.
Okay. And think Ruth, more than likely, this wasn't her first rodeo. She probably has gleaned before, because Moab was known for growing grain. One part of the country was quite good landscape, good cropland for that type of agriculture. So I get the feeling that maybe she's done that before. But that was just a feeling that I got when I was reading about this. Now, back then, it was just you either a herder, herded animals and took care of animals, animal husbandry, or you did some farming, or you might have been a hunter-gatherer. There wasn't a whole lot of ways to feed yourself, So they had a pretty basic society back then. Okay, so she asked permission to go. She looked at Naomi as, you're over me. You're the elder portion of the family that's left, and I, look to you for guidance in what I do. She was loyal to Naomi, and so she asked permission to go do that, and then she was granted that to go out, and she was out there and just happened to fall in the field of Boaz. This is all part of God's plan. As we read on through this, we'll see that this is goes right along with what, it's kind of a different type story in the Bible than what we usually see. You're out fighting, conquering, or you're sinning and doing bad things. And here it's a story of somebody trying to survive. But back behind that, there's God is teaching a lesson. And through this narrative, we'll learn a lot of different little things that will help us in our own lives. Okay, what did the old law teach about gleaning?
It was basically for the poor and vulnerable, so that they could work for their food, like the widows and some of the poor, that they could go in and glean after the harvest and get what they needed to survive.
Yeah. I call it Hebrew welfare. That's what the idea I got behind it. But yeah, that's right. That's the little different thing. Okay, you know what gleaning is, Paula.
Well, they were supposed to pick up what was dropped, and they were supposed to leave some for the poor.
Yeah, they left stuff in the corners. Well, if we go back to
Edges of their fields unharvested.
yeah, we flip back to Leviticus 19, and we can see what it says there. 19, 9 and 10. Had my eyes tested today, so that stuff that makes your eyeballs open up big and wide, it's still a little foggy yet. Okay, 9 and 10. When you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not wholly reap the corners of your fields, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. And you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. So that was God's plan to feed the people that didn't have much, or they were strangers in the land or passing through. Now, I remember one time Jesus and his disciples were walking around, and the disciples gathered some stuff, some grains, heads of grain or whatever it was, and ate them. And some of the Pharisees didn't like that because they didn't wash their hands like they should have according to the tradition of the elders. So they must. Did you have something? Okay, I'm done. Go ahead.
Well, I found something online. I didn't know about this. I bet lots of people have. There is a national gleaning project in America funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Agricultural Research Service and nonprofits supporting growers and gardeners who want to donate excess crops.
Okay.
And that's what they call it. They call it the
Yeah.
Gleaning Project, National Gleaning Project.
Now, if you remember way back when me and you were first living here, when they grew the potatoes down there on the flats between Snohomish and the Seattle Hill Road there, people would go out and gather those potatoes up laying out there that were, weren't all picked up by the harvesters. And so.
We freeze. We such a different taste. Oh, yeah, so much better than dry apples in the store.
Okay. All right. Anybody have anything more on that question? All right.
Well, part of that question is, do you have some more on that about?
Oh, yeah. What does this show us about Ruth?
She's a doer.
Okay, she was a doer, a worker. She wasn't one of those lazy people that sits around waiting for the food to come to her door. She was out there ready to work. Now, that'll be noticed by other people that she's a hard worker. Okay, and in whose field did she work, and what do we know about this man? Okay, Boaz. All right. What do we know about him?
Near kinsman.
Okay, he's a kinsman, near one. We know that he's a wealthy man. He's a man of standing in the community, a mighty man. Now, it depends on which translation you look at. You can get different things about him. Yeah.
He was also Rahab's son.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
See how God had blessed that family? So, it carried on down, but not said, but there it is. God is blessing that family. And Boaz himself was out in that field supervising and everything. He wasn't back in the village sitting someone else there. He was himself there the whole time. He was there. Back later on, he would sleep out there.
Yep. Yeah, I read where that was something that the people, when they harvested something, the owner would be right out there, and it's partially to guard it too, so nobody would come and steal it. They'd be right there, keeping watch over it.
During the harvest process, he had a servant watching over the reapers.
Yeah, they had like a foreman. They did call it foreman in one place.
Yeah, but a very rich man wouldn't have to go out there, he would send somebody else. But Boaz was out.
Well, it says that he spoke with his foreman, basically.
Yeah.
That was in charge of the reapers.
Do you have something, Karen?
Well, he was very kind to his workers and, blessed him in the Lord, blessed them. When he greeted them, he said, the Lord bless you richly, and they responded in kind to him.
Mhm.
So, he was apparently, very careful to be kind and rewarding to his workers for doing a good job.
Right. So I believe he was a godly person because of the greeting he gave. And his workers, they had the similar type greeting back to him. And he was aware of their welfare. They had some places called it a house, some places called it a shelter type thing for them to take a rest in. And they had their water out there too. And then they had meals out there also. Now, another thing we know about on down the road about Boaz. That I believe he's like a middle-aged man. If you go to Ruth 3:10, that's where you get the idea of that. I guess I better get back here to Ruth. Okay, 3:10. Then he said, "Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich." So I kind of give me indication he was an older man. You know, I kind of think he was a fairly intelligent guy too. Anybody that becomes very wealthy and stuff, you got to have common sense and know how to care for your livestock, your grains that you got to take care of everything, and you got to take care of the whole family of the servants and everything. So you got to be an intelligent guy to keep all that stuff going good. Okay, anything more on that one there? Okay, let's go on to 3. What did Boaz ask when he observed Ruth? Okay. Now, that gives you indication that he knew everybody, around there, servants, the regular citizens. So he knew by sight people. And, you could also say maybe she wore a little different apparel than the rest of them because she's from Moab. I don't know, but anyway, he was curious who she was. And then what answer did he get?
Told him that she was with Naomi and came from Moab.
Okay.
He had respect for her.
What was that?
He had respect for her
Okay.
for being a hard worker.
All right. And what can we learn from the way he treated his workers? Yeah.
You kind of touched on it.
Yeah.
Greets them with, "May the Lord be with you." These are the first words Boaz speaks. So Boaz brought the Lord into his daily life in the form of a blessing from a master to his workers. He greeted his workers with God. And then one of my favorite guys, Charles Spurgeon, addressed his congregation during a sermon saying, "How better could I salute you this morning than in the words of Boaz to his reapers, 'The Lord be with you.' And what kinder answer could you give to me than, 'The Lord bless you.'" It's so perfect. It's
Yeah.
God's words for sure.
Okay, let's see. Little side note here is when they come and glean at the harvest time, there are certain things that were the proper way to do it. And asking permission and to glean and gather among the sheaves. You not do that, you got to be back behind everybody else. All the workers in the field, you can't go up and work right next to them. You got to be back. And
Otherwise you'd be a reaper, not a gleaner, right?
yeah. Being real close was not customary, it was unusual. And if somebody was up close, it would indicate a high amount of confidence or honesty of the gleaner. So keep that in mind when we get down here a little farther on.
Hey there.
Yeah.
It just seems that, like you were saying, that he recognized it on the rides up or whatever, he's come up and he notices a different person. I think he even got even closer and noticed that it's an attractive looking woman. I don't know. Maybe he got it close up and got to see that it was a woman at first, and that's why he inquired about it. And so what I was thinking about when they said she's a Moabite, let's say, for instance, if there was a man saying Moabite, because that's like enemy type of,
Mm-hmm.
and say, well, why do we have a Moabite leaving on our pasture, so I don't, you're not reading into it
Yeah.
too much, but.
Well, them being Israelites were living in Moab for a while,
Yeah.
and go ahead, Vern.
Well, the law said that when a stranger came into your country, you're supposed to treat him with honor. Not take advantage of, not be mean, not destroy him, but you're supposed to take, really treat him well. Now, by the time Christ came, they had reversed that, and they wouldn't have anything to do with anybody else. But at first, the law said you take care and make sure that these sojourners are treated right. And so they had an obligation there. But I think Boaz would have been it anyhow. But it looks to me like when he found out that this girl that was out in the field was with Naomi, I think that's what spurred all of this charity he was giving to her. Because he wasn't giving it to her, he was giving it to Naomi, which was close relative.
Right.
You had a cousin that was, you found out here in the field or something, doing something, you might do what he did is help that person. He's helping Naomi by helping Ruth. And he goes further than that. He says, you stay close to my people, and I told my servants and everybody to just treat you good. You better not be hurt by anybody of my field, so you're going to be protected. And then he goes ahead and gives her food, and he gives her water and everything else, so it just goes on from there. But I think initially, this is for Naomi, and he knows that she has been so good to Naomi that he's good to her too. So I think it's just something that was part of his character, is to be generous and kind to people. And I think that's probably why God has blessed him.
Okay. Did you have something, Ken?
Well, yeah, verse 19 of chapter 1, we got Naomi shows up at Bethlehem, and she's coming into town, and it says the whole town basically knew who she was, right?
Mm-hmm.
19 and 20. So then a little later, this first verse over here in chapter 2, Naomi is known, it says, to have a family member in that town, related to her. And Boaz happens to be the one. It was interesting to me that when the girl went out, she didn't go looking for Boaz's field. She just showed up at that field. But later, when they said, this is the woman that came in with Naomi, at probably verse 6 or so, chapter 2, says, well, you've got to know that Boaz also knows who his relatives are. And so he heard the name Naomi tied to the woman, and that's all he had to know. Because to take care of your family.
Right. Now, just so happens that the kinsmen, they had a lot of different responsibilities. And I have this answer for another question, but they were responsible for protecting the interest of the needy family members. And let's go down the line. They got to provide an heir for the brother who died. If a brother dies, they need to redeem back the land of a poor relative that had been sold outside of the family, and they had to redeem a relative sold into slavery. And top it off, they had to be the avenger of a killing of a relative. So they had a bunch of different things that they had to do, the kinsmen. So,
Well, that was their responsibility.
yeah, according to God, that was what he wanted them to do. So there's a number of things there.
I think there were certain cases when they didn't do
Yeah,
We'll see.
there is. Yeah, there is. But you get marked when you do that.
Well, I think the first guy coming.
Okay, let's see. We were at. Okay. Okay, did we get down to the point? Oh, wait a minute here. So, one other thing I want to point out, he was well respected by the workers and also the elders. When you get down to the end of the chapters, in chapter 4, that he got the elders together to make a decision. So I believe he was, knew all the elders, and they did what he requested of them. So I think he was respected by them also. Okay, question 4. What advice did Boaz give Ruth in her work?
He was really kind to her, and he told her to stay on his property and don't leave. That, stay with his babies, and then if she needed a drink, to get what they had with the servants, and nobody would touch her.
Okay,
She was safe.
right. And he also addressed her as my daughter. So, addressed her as a young woman now. Ruth had been married for 10 years, right? And some of the commentators I read, they said Ruth was married very young. So, I don't know. I just know over there, still today, I've heard of people over in that part of the world marry they do, some of them marry children, but young marriages is, I don't think, a uncommon thing happening yet today. You have something to say? Okay. So anyway, he considered her, just a young woman, my daughter. That's what I get out of that.
Larry, if she was 30 and he was 50, that would be like you would, some 50-year-old would say to a young woman, not in our, but we would treat her as a young woman. 30-year-old is a young woman in my eyes, and I think a 50-year-old man would look at it in that same way, that this is somebody that's a generation younger than you are.
Yeah, at least, yep. Then another thing about her being protected and sticking around his workers and being, supplied with water. Back then you just go over to the spigot and have some water. You'd have to pull it out of a well and carry it out there to the field. So it was some labor-intensive thing to get anything back then. So that was another kindness that he gave to Naomi.
Well, and having her stay in his field with other women, she'd find companionship. She may not have any, well, obviously, I don't think she had any friends. I mean, she'd know anybody. So now she's going to know some friends.
Okay, yeah, like to be with your friends. Okay, let's go on to the next one if there's nothing more to say about that. How did Ruth respond to the kindness of Boaz?
Suspicious.
She was suspicious. Anybody else?
Well, with respect, she fell to her face.
Right.
And bowed down to the ground. Said, why have you found favor in me?
Yeah, that was kind of a common way of showing respect by. Did you have something, Vern?
No,
Oh, I thought you had your hand up.
I could.
I just saw something go.
No, I just moved on.
Okay. That was a common way to show respect back then. We see that happening in the Bible and other times. And one time I thought of was when, it was when Abigail was notified by some of David's men that he was asking her to be his wife, and she hurriedly got on her donkey and rode off with him. So that was the courtship of Abigail. But
You gotta realize who she was living with.
yeah,
And
he was a nasty guy. Nabal, I think, right? Yeah, let's see. Where was I at here?
See now, Larry, on verse 10,
Okay.
the reason I said suspicious, because it's just like today, when you approach somebody and you're extra nice to them, they kind of wonder why. I'm going to ask you that question. Why? He says, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing as I'm a stranger? She doesn't know this is Boaz. You've got to see that right there.
Yeah. Yeah, some places call her she says, I'm a foreigner or a stranger. So, yeah, that sounds like a reasonable thing to be kind of, what's going on here? Did you have something?
Yes, well, she actually got her wish because initially when she talked to Naomi, let me go glean in that field that I might find favor in him. And so basically that she wouldn't get kicked out for being foreigner. What do we have a foreigner here for? You know, we might have somebody that, might not follow the laws and say, I don't want any foreigners in my land. But that's why I think that's what she said, that I may find, he may find favor in me. But, then she got her wish. And, well, wait a minute. She found favor in me now. What is the whole cause of this?
Yeah. Okay, that's a reasonable thought to have. Yeah.
Larry, and actually she's seen this guy and she doesn't know who he is, and she finds out who he is and finds out, but she don't know anything about him. I mean, this is all unfolding, and she's got to be scared. You take a woman that's a stranger, nobody will stick up for her, and put her in a situation where she's out in the fields and out there. It's a very dangerous place to be. And she was really being brave to go out there and do that, but it was food. And they had to have food, her and Naomi had to have food, so this is the way to get it. And so it had to be a very trying and a cautious thing that she had to do.
Yeah.
And she comes about Boaz, and Boaz is doing all these great things for her, and then finding out who he is and finding out that he knows all about her relationship with Naomi, that it had to put her at ease. And then she's getting all of these extra things.
Yep.
And I think because of Naomi, but it's because of the way she was treating Naomi, that I think it expands itself.
Okay. Yep.
She didn't know that yet. She asked the question.
Okay, the next question will give us some more answers here. What reasons did Boaz give to Ruth for his treatment of her? And that is, over here to Ruth again. In verse 11 and 12 it says, and Boaz answered and said to her, it has been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you have left your father and your mother in the land of your birth, and have come to a people whom you did not know before. The Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. So he knew all about her, as Vern said. She was given special treatment by Boaz. And Now, under whose wings, go over to chapter 3, verse 9, and it says, and he said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative." Now, some places that's translated a different word than wing, but it was like a covering of your feet or something there. So that was used in a couple different places. And I guess we pretty well answered that one by reading it. Anybody have any comments on that? Okay, what additional instruction did Boaz give about Ruth?
Additional instruction he gave to somebody else. Don't be mentioned with it.
Okay.
We said down here, and that you may heat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in vinegar.
Okay.
Invited her to eat.
And then there were some other things done for
Get down, and he even gave her permission to be amongst the sheaves.
Okay, she got some real special treatment there, getting getting up close with all the work being done there. So she got treated quite well as a gleaner. And they said don't even rebuke her or say anything to her. So,
Leave some of the grain out of the sheaves so she could get it.
yep. So then she could gather quite a bit. Okay, that's kind of answering that one. How did Ruth finish her work, and what did she do after she finished gleaning? What happened there?
She got invited to dinner.
I think that was back in question 5, wasn't it? Or the 8? Okay, anybody? Anything there? Okay, she threshed out the grain she had picked. You know, you could small amounts of it you could do by hand. You wouldn't have to have the threshing floor and all that. So she took it back to Naomi, and she also had some leftover food from the meal that Boaz invited her to share with them at the time when they were having their lunch. So she took that back and gave that to Naomi. So that's what she did when she finished it up. Paula.
One of the commentaries I read said she didn't bind up her gleaning into a bundle and carry it home on her head as leaders do. She beat it out with a staff in the field where she gleaned it and winnowed it, which brought into a lesser size and weight and a lighter burden to carry.
Yeah.
You know, I had this idea of this massive amount of stuff hanging all over the place. You know, like a donkey.
Yeah.
You know how they have those bundles on? But she had
Yeah.
beat it down.
I remember when I was a kid, we had wheat growing in our field right out by the barn, and you just go out there and grab the head of the wheat, and you kind of rub it between your hands, give it a little blow, and it'd blow the chaff away, and we'd eat it, you know.
Larry, it wasn't, when the reapers would reap, would they bundle into a bundle, or leave it for somebody else in the bundle, and then that bundle would be taken to the threshing floor, and then beat or whatever they do, grind, whatever it has to be, and it would separate then the chaff from the grain. So
Yeah.
it was a process that was going on.
Yeah, I had a big long list of things about that a while back. If I remember right, the men would cut it with a sickle, and the women would bind it up in bundles. Yeah, sheaves. And you'd bring in the sheaves. Then the guys would come along with the donkey carts and load them up and haul them in. And their threshing floor was a really hard, packed area. It was either clay or rock, and it had to be a nice, smooth area. And they would run their animals across it, or use a special type sledgehammer they had that had teeth on it, whack it and break it all loose. And then they would use these winnowing forks that throw up in the air. This threshing floor had to be in a certain place where the wind blew, so it would blow the chaff away, and it was usually in the afternoon when that happened. And so then it would blow away the chaff, and then we could get the grain and put it in bags or whatever, containers of some type, and haul it off for storage. So it was a pretty involved thing to do, if I remembered all the steps right.
You ever do that before?
Never did that because we had a columbine. That was way back in the 50s.
Like
Had a,
wheat actually did that.
we did wheat. We didn't do barley.
Find out what it was like.
Well, it's very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, they're just, grains.
Happened when I
So
was
it
a
would,
kid.
it would have to be broken down
They're
into
big
this
and they have
product that they
all
would
kinds
use.
to them.
And then she would have that, so she would be carrying just the grain back.
Yeah.
And I think she had a load, just grain.
Yeah.
Back.
The
Don't do anything with it, but I just
ephah that she brought back was unusually large for one day's work. That's what the commentary said. And it's close to 3/4 of a gallon. It says between a half a gallon and a gallon. So I just said 3/4 of a gallon then. That's halfway.
It's about 35 liters.
Yeah, it's bigger.
Yeah, it seems like a lot bigger.
It's about 8 dry gallons.
I saw where it said 3/4 of a gallon. But it was large for a day of gleaning.
Well, I read it was enough food for 5 days, whatever she gleaned was enough to feed them for 5 days. But she beat it out.
Yeah.
In a process that you were on a conveyor belt sort of thing, and this is your job, your job, your job. She did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's kind of messy, so she might not have wanted Naomi to have to, because Naomi might have wanted to help her, and she didn't want her to do that, so she did it in the field and bring it home, so there wasn't a mess where they were living in,
Yeah.
and it was easier for her to carry.
Transport that.
Yeah, that's, I think, a big thing. You take the, chief, I think Paula said that, you take all that extra stuff, you just got grain, if you have more weight, but you don't have all that extra weight that you're in bulk that you have to carry. And wheel now, of course, you had to walk, you could have walked 5 miles, 10 miles, I don't know how big
Yeah.
that was, but it was a distance.
Yep.
That was a lot of work that she did for one day. I mean, that's a lot of work.
And one thing, she was right out there where the right kind of wind was happening to could blow the debris away, so she was in a perfect place to do it.
Well, I read somewhere that she was neither ashamed to confess her poverty, nor would she eat the bread of idleness. So she earned this with a hard part. Not too proud to do it.
Yeah, well, you either sit at home and starve or go out and work and eat.
And I'm sorry, but I think a lot of people that are out begging right now have no pride. I mean,
Well, that's true. They're, yep. Okay. Well, let's go on to number 9 here. What question did Naomi ask Ruth, and what did Ruth tell her? That's after she got back from the gleaning.
Where'd you glean today?
Okay, that sounds like what I'd want to know. And what kind of answer she get?
and he who took notice of you be blessed. That's what she's going to continue to tell Ruth. She tells her it wasn't
2:19, it says, and her mother-in-law said to her, where have you gleaned today, and where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. And Naomi says, hot dog. Get the right place there.
So do you get the impression that Boaz was working also?
I think he was. I mean, he was a hands-on guy, it looked like to me. He just, that's how he got wealthy. Didn't sit back and watch other people do the work.
Well, he laid down on the threshing floor to go to sleep.
Yeah, he was tired. He was out there sleep by the grain, garden it. Okay, let's see. We mark that one off then. What did Naomi say about Boaz? Yeah, we answered that. Lord bless him.
No, there's a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, there is more. We got. What's the more?
May he be blessed of the Lord who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and the dead. He's been kind to Elimelech and his 2 sons, now dead. He continued his kindness to the reliefs of them, Naomi and Ruth, who were living, and was kind to them for the sake of the dead. You know, it's just a real good guy and
Okay.
the dead by helping the living.
And she says that he's a close relative of ours. Now, some places it says kinsman, and some places say kinsman redeemer. And that was what I went to just a little bit ago and told about all the different things that the kinsman redeemer, his duties. You know, if he had a brother that died and left a widow, you know, the kinsman redeemer, or there was a relative that was a slave and he would redeem him back to the family. So they had a lot of responsibilities. The relatives that had the ability to help, or they were the closest one to take back the widow and raise up heirs to the, and
Well, they had first right refusal.
yeah, they could refuse, and there was things that happened when you refused.
Well, we're gonna experience it.
Yeah, well, that'll be another question we can get an answer to later on down the line.
You know, I think it's very curious to me that it doesn't say if Boaz had a wife at that point or not. You know, and you say, I don't know, because it'd be quite common for him to have a wife, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't have had a wife and lost her. You know, if he's 50 years old or whatever. So, you know, it just doesn't say. In most cases, like the relative in this culture, refused, but he didn't want to interfere with the rest of his family. And so it makes you wonder. So I don't know. I don't think there's an answer. But I think it's just curious that he definitely
Yeah.
mentioned one way or the other.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about that too. You know, when you go over this story and you can't quite figure part of it out, and then all of a sudden you're walking around that in the yard or something, and wow, I just got to come up with an idea how that's working out now. So, you know, it gives you a lot of food for thought. And, you know, the way we are today, and people get married stuff, marriages were arranged back then lots of times. And you didn't marry a woman that you loved, you know, and you went out and had good times together and all that, but you know, there'd be a reason for you to marry a certain person and stuff. So, you know, it was a whole different situation, but it did work, you know, back then. But yes.
You know, and along with that, it's something that the father of the girl would have complete control, even up in the time of Christ. He had complete control. He said, no, you can't get married. You know, she wouldn't, well, unless she ran off and they started, went to another country. But it was something the father had control over that. But one thing that's really
Yeah, okay. I didn't even cross my mind there. I hadn't thought that far enough ahead. Okay. All right. Let's see. Maybe we got time for one more. What further advice did Naomi give to Ruth? And that was down toward the end of the chapter. You're asking that question. Anybody get a...
Stay with those maidens.
Okay. And the reason for that would be you could be harmed in the other fields that, they might not look upon you in the way that Boaz had his servants take care of her and everything. So, all right, let's try one more and finish this page. How long did Ruth continue to work in the fields of Boaz? Last one for this.
Until the end of the harvest.
Okay. Yeah, I got till the barley and the wheat harvest were finished. Yep, the barley was first and the wheat second. Okay, so that finishes this sheet, and we'll be in Ruth 3 next week then. So we'll let you have the...
We'll be singing number 603. 603. Days are filled with sorrow and care, hearts are lonely and drear. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Cast your care on Jesus today, leave your worry and fear. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Troubled soul, the Savior can see every heartache and tear. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Calvary, Calvary. Burdens are lifted at Calvary, Jesus is very near.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we are about to leave this place, we thank you for this opportunity to hear of your word, how the people live in the day of Naomi. We thank you, Father, for showing us the nature of the people, and that we might think about ourselves as how we go about our relationships day to day.